In example 2, we're going to go ahead and solve for x in a triangle. Our x could either be a side or it could be an angle. In letter A, we have x as our hypotenuse. So we're given 3 pieces of information and we have to know which trig function we need to use. So if we write down what we have, here's our angle, which is 53 degrees. We have the adjacent side and we have the hypotenuse. So if we have the adjacent side and the hypotenuse, we need to think about which trig function we have. If it helps, don't forget to write down your SOHCAHTOA. So if we have adjacent and hypotenuse, we have A and H, which means we are dealing with the cosine. So we can set this up as the cosine of our angle, which is 53 degrees, equals the adjacent, which is 12, over the hypotenuse, which is x. And then what we need to do is we need to solve for x. Since x is in our denominator, we want to start by multiplying both sides by x. And if we multiply both sides by x, we get x times the cosine of 53 degrees equal to 12. Then to get x by itself, we need to divide both sides by the cosine of 53 degrees. And we end up with x. Now, on your calculator, you're going to want to plug this in. You have to be very careful at this point because your calculator has 2 different modes, one for degrees and one for radians, which we'll be using later on in the chapter. So you want to go to the mode button on your calculator, and the mode button is going to be up next to the second button on the top row. If you hit that mode button, you should be able to change it to degrees. If you don't know where that is or you need help figuring out if you are in degrees or not, please let me know and I'll help you with your calculator. What I want you to do right now, though, is actually divide this out for me. Take 12, divide it by the cosine of 53 degrees to make sure you have the same answer as me. So you should get x to be approximately 19.9. So if you need to pause the video for a second, double check that your calculator is giving you the right answer, you know how to change your mode, and then you can move on. If you have questions on any part of it, let me know and I can help you out. If we then look at letter B, we're actually solving for our angle. So the angle is what we're looking for. We also have to go through the same thing and figure out what do we have. We have our adjacent side and we have our hypotenuse. So since we have adjacent and hypotenuse, we have exactly what we had in letter A. So we are using the cosine again. This time, though, as we set it up, we have the cosine of x equal to our adjacent, which is 6, over the hypotenuse, which is 9. And this time what we're doing is we're actually solving for the angle. So what we have to do is we have to get rid of the cosine, which means we need the inverse function to get rid of it. Just like addition and subtraction are inverse functions, there's a cosine and there's an inverse cosine. So what we're really going to do is we're going to take the cosine, we're going to take the inverse of the cosine of x, which means we're going to take the inverse of 6 over 9. And what happens is just like addition and subtraction, they undo each other. The cosine inverse of the cosine is going to let us get that x out by itself. So we get x equal to, then on our calculators, we want to type in the cosine inverse of 6 over 9. If you look at your cosine button on your calculator, above that is the cosine inverse button, which means you're going to have to hit the second key first. So take a look at your calculator right now. Make sure you have that inverse button on there and you know where to find it. I'm going to go ahead and do that for you. You should get 48.2 degrees if we round it to the nearest tenth. But now go ahead and do it on your calculator. Make sure you're getting 48.2 degrees when you type it in. If you're not, please call me over so I can take a look at your calculator or maybe what you typed in to see that you're doing things correctly. If you have no questions, then you can move on to example 3.